Bigger. Keep in mind, bigger is a type of historical fiction. Historical fiction is a genre of fiction in which the author creates fictional characters to help tell the history of true historical events. Keep that in mind as you're reading Chapter 2. Also keep in mind the use of simile is quite prominent in this selection. Chapter 2. Mama, her cheeks pink with excitement, was not her steady self at all as she set an extra cup and a plate on the table. The stranger sat in Papa's chair under the window. No one had used it since Papa rode away, and Rosalie and Lucas sat to his left, their black eyes wide and surprised in the smoky yellow light of the kerosene lamp. Maggie lay on the hearth where her new pups, still so small they looked like fat brown sausages fastened to the teats on her belly. Tyler imagined the stranger being hungry, perhaps having gone days without food as he hurried home from the war. Would eat like a wolf, or at least like a man who hadn't had a good meal in a while. Instead, he accepted a single biscuit almost reluctantly, buttered it, sweetened it with only one thin ribbon of sorghum, then ate as discreetly as a lady at a church social. Tyler cleared his throat. As the man of the house, he felt obliged to make conversation. It was something Papa had no trouble doing at all, and if he had been home, he'd have filled the room with questions and comments in his strong, dark gypsy voice. "Where do you hail from?" Tyler began. Papa might have been bolder, but the boy, it seemed like a safe beginning. The stranger chewed slowly. "A ways from here, son, near where the Wakanda River runs into the Mississippi." Tyler hoped the stranger would go on, but he continued to chew in his picky way. Tyler decided to frame his next remark so it wouldn't sound as if he were prying, yet would encourage the guest to be more forthcoming. Papa, John Bohannon, is his name, but folks in these parts have always called him Blackjack. Rode with General Joseph O. Shelby. I was wondering if you might have heard. "Ah, Joe Shelby," the stranger echoed. His smile barely lifted the corners of his mouth, but he nodded as if the name were familiar. "I didn't ride with that brigade myself, but I saw him once. Not a big man, as men go. Went about with a long black plume stuck in the headband of his hat. They claim he had 29 horses shot out from under him, yet was never harmed. If my mount's a red one, I know I'll never be killed in battle," he claimed. Yep, an unusual man in more ways than one. It was Tyler's turn to nod. Papa's horse, Ransom, was a fine, blood-colored bay. Did that mean he'd never get killed in battle either? In more ways than one. Tyler pressed eagerly. He needed to know more about this man, Joe Shelby, of whom Papa wrote so often in his letters. "Among other things, he's never surrendered to the Union," the stranger answered. Across the table, Lucas's and Rosalie's eyes were as round as saucers, and their biscuits cooled on their plates. "But the war's over now," Tyler put in, "so I suppose Joe Shelby will have to give up just like everyone else." The stranger raised his pale brows. "I heard the general's running like a fox. Unless those Federals are as fleet as hounds, there'll be no defeat for him," he murmured, his smile neither joyful nor bitter. Mama seemed surprised. "And why not, pray tell?" "Like my boy Tyler just said, sir, the war is over. With God's grace, everyone can go back to living regular lives again. Surely you don't exclude General Shelby?" Her voice was heated, and Tyler knew exactly what worried her heart. If Joe Shelby was on the run, Papa might go following after him. "Those are easy words, ma'am, but some men don't give up their dreams as easy as others." Tyler fidgeted. Hadn't he planned to eat at least 3 or 4 biscuits tonight? To smother them in butter and sorghum? Why, yes, but something much more important had stolen his hunger away. Won't they hunt him till they catch him? General Shelby, I mean? Tyler asked, and laid his fork beside his plate as he waited for the stranger to drain his coffee cup. I heard he was leaving the country, the man murmured, that he'd rather quit the South itself than ever give up to a Yankee. For some men, the idea of the Confederacy went bone deep, you see. The fact that General Lee surrendered to General Grant at Appomattox Courthouse over there in Virginia never cut it with the likes of Joe Shelby. Leaving the country? Tyler repeated. But why would a man leave the country? Lincoln had kept it together, hadn't he? And one way or the other, didn't everyone have to haul in the same harness, pull in the same direction now? Isn't that what the Union victory meant? He's going over the border, son, the stranger explained, far and away beyond the reach of the long arm of the government up in Washington. Over the border. What border? Tyler tried to imagine where this border might be that the general spoke of. Perhaps the stranger meant General Shelby was headed out west where it was said a man could get land for free, that all he needed to do was prove it up by homesteading it. The West was so wide open that states still called themselves territories out there because they hadn't been admitted to the Union yet. Or maybe the stranger meant way up north to that place called Canada. On Mr. Blackburn's map at school, it was colored green and looked even bigger than the United States. If that's what Papa aimed to do, he'd surely have let his own family know, wouldn't he? They're going down to Mexico, the stranger went on, and allowed Mama to pour him another cup of coffee. Her hand trembled, Tyler noticed, and he sensed the dread she felt. Then it was just as the boy hoped. After more coffee, with another warm biscuit in his belly, the stranger seemed almost eager to share everything he had heard. General Shelby's drummed up a ragtag mix to go with him, about 600 men, I hear, and hopes he'll pick up more volunteers along the way, he said. He aims to cross the Rio Grande at the Texas border, then talk to Emperor Maximilian into giving him a hand with his schemes. Once in Mexico, you know, the Union men can't touch a hair on those boys' heads. Then, when he gets up enough militia, Shelby intends to come back and wage war against the Union all over again. Mexico? So far from the soft hills of Missouri? Tyler knew almost nothing about Texas, even less about Mexico. He imagined the sun must shine down there all the time, that there'd be no hills, no meadows, no clear, clean streams, as there were in Missouri. Why would a person want to go to such a place when they could come back here to a snug cabin on Sweet Creek, to a wife and 3 children, a cow who had just come fresh, a garden that was already half grown, most of all to a son who'd been waiting 4 long years? But in his heart, Tyler knew if Papa was still alive, if he still had 2 good legs, could load his rifle quick as ever, then he'd surely be on his way to Mexico with General Shelby. The stranger spread the blanket Mama had given to him on the clean straw in the empty stall next to Calico. Her weak old calf, as sweetly spotted as its mother, poked its wet pink nose through the slats as if, too, wanted to hear what was going to be said. "No need for you to stay up with me, son," the stranger murmured kindly. "From the looks of that garden, you've put in a long day yourself, and you must be as tired as me. I'll just stretch out here and be mighty grateful for the hospitality." Tyler lingered. "What you said about those troops headed for Mexico," he began slowly. "Any chance they'll change their minds?" Before settling back, the stranger sat a moment with his arms looped around his bent knees. "Oh, no doubt. A few will give it up. They'll get to thinking about home, about the life they're throwing over. But others, he narrowed his eyes in the soft glare of the kerosene lamp that Tyler held. Son, there are some chaps who cleave to a notion like others cleave to a piece of ground or to their children and womenfolk. Me? He stopped and smiled apologetically. Well, I'm a man who only wants to go back to that place I came from, up where the Wyconda runs into the Mississippi, where my kin have lived since before the century turn. I did what I figured was my duty. But back home, well, I've got me a boy about your age, a good boy, and I want to see him again, quick as I can. My wife, too, and all those good places to hunt and fish, and I thought for sure I'd never see again when dead men lay all around me and bullets whined past my ears thicker than swarms of hornets. The stranger stopped, and the boy realized he'd said about all he had to say. Yet there was something Tyler still needed to know. How far do you figure it is? He asked, dreaming a dream even though he was standing upright, eyes wide open, not even sleepy yet. How far is what? Mexico. How far is it from Missouri, do you suppose? Oh, a mighty long way, son. Must be nearly 800 miles as the crow flies, probably a whole lot farther on foot. Tyler hesitated a moment. How would a person get there? If he took a mind to, I mean. Well, I guess you'd. Here, wait a minute. I have something that might. And the stranger got to his feet, reached into his pocket, and drew out a tattered, grayed piece of paper. I got this here scrap of a map, he said. That might show you what you want to know. With a stub of a pencil, he wrote something on the back, then held it out. When Tyler touched the paper, something happened inside him. Until that moment, he hadn't been sure exactly what the dream in his head was all about. Its outlines were fuzzy and faint. Clutching the piece of folded paper, they suddenly came into sharp focus. Thank you kindly, Tyler murmured. I'll see you in the morning. Shall I leave the lamp with you? No, son. Carry it back to your mama. Thank her for the fine biscuits and give my regards to your papa when he gets home tonight. Halfway back to the house, Tyler stopped and blew out the lamp. Overhead, the stars looked closer and friendlier than they had in a long time. He paused in the path, held the lamp against his chest where the chimney glass warmed his breastbone, and thought about what he had just heard. 800 miles as the crow flies, the stranger had said. A lot longer on foot. Yes, Tyler agreed silently. That was a long, long way. Was it too far to go to live the dream that was now fully shaped in his head and heart?